All right, so let's talk about slope and graphing lines. Um, this is kind of weird. I can't see myself. Like usually I can see like the little video of myself in the corner, but I don't see anything. I don't even know what's going on right now. Anyway, slope is a measure of how steep or slanted something is. So you have a line. Boom. This is not very slanted. In fact, it's not slanted at all. It has what's called the zero slope, which we'll talk about later. Kind of slanted, so it has not very high of a slope. More slanted, more steep, higher slope. That's all slope is measuring how steep and in what direction, technically, a line is going. So a measure of how steep or slanted a line is. There's some different ways of thinking about it. Vertical over horizontal. So there's actually some systems like road grade, I believe, where they talk about horizontal over vertical, but in geometry, we're almost always talking vertical. Not almost, it's vertical over horizontal. It always is, which is y's over x's because you know y-axis is up and down, x-axis horizontal. The thing that you should remember the most is rise over run. And then there's a formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And just so you know, slope is always labeled as the letter M. And people aren't actually 100% sure. There's two different thoughts. One is that stands for like the modulus of slope or something like that. And that's what the M stands for. Or in French, like the word mont or something like that means climb. And so they're thinking maybe that's why it's M, but it's actually not 100%. So from a graph, if you want to do slope, boom, 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 you're going to always start at the left point. You're going to count up, which is a positive number, or down, which is a negative number, to be even with that point. Then you're going to count right to get that point, and then your answer is always going to be a fraction, always. So let's say we wanted to find the slope of the pink line right there. You count the rise, and you count the left point, and you count 1, 2, 3, and then you count over 1, 2. So the slope of that pink line is the fraction 3, because that was the horizontal, the vertical, the rise, over 2. So if you want to find the slope of that orange line, start at the left point, and you're going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4. Since you went downwards, that is a negative 4. And then you're going to count over 1. And so your slope would be negative 4 over 1. You could put negative 4 as well. That'll actually be useful sometimes. Usually you do want to put that 1 there just to remind people. And like I said, on a horizontal line, it's rise. And how much do you rise by? Blech, nothing. You don't rise at all, but you're always running. But since it's a 0 rise, it has a slope of 0. You could also find slope through a pair of points. So let's say I want you to find the slope of 4, 3, 7, 1. So it's basically saying if I gave you the point 4, 3, and 7, 1, there's a line between them. What's the slope? That's basically, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, a dot there, 5, 6, 7, 1. So you could graph them and then count. That's always legit. 1, negative 2, and then I believe it's 1, 2, 3. So negative 2/3 is going to be our answer. So you can do that, and that's fine. And a lot of people will do that. Sometimes you're going to get points though, that you can't graph, or I didn't give you a graph because people don't want to make their own. So you're going to use the formula to do that, which is once again y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The 2 and the 1, all that is saying that it's two different y's. It's not squared or anything like that. So step 1, use the formula. I guess these are kind of like step 1 and 1a. And you don't have to do this if you're super confident, but you can label your x's and y's. Okay, next step, subtract any direction, but it must be the same for the y's and the x's. So that's why I like to draw arrows when I do this, is so I remember what direction that I'm subtracting in. So 1 minus 3, 7 minus 4. Or you could do 3 minus 1 or 4 minus 7. What you cannot do is say, oh, 3 minus 1 is 2, and then 7 minus 4 is 3. Then your arrows would be going in different directions. Answer is always a fraction. If there's only one negative, put that negative on top. Just makes things easier. You could also put it out in front. 2 negatives means a positive. So if you get double negatives, turn the whole thing positive. So basically what happens when we did this, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. 7 minus 4 is 3. You get negative 2/3. And this one we did 3 minus 1 is 2. 4 minus 7 is negative 3. Like I just said, if you have a negative, just one of them put on top. Look, they are the same. Remember, y is on top because y's rhymes with rise. Oh, that was squeaky. Y's rhymes with y's. Okay. Rise, rise. Y's, rise. Y's, rise. This is what I call the slope face. Basically, if it goes down and to the right, it's a negative slope because you're going downhill. The way I like to think of it is you got a ball downhill. This way it's positive. You're going uphill. It's going to take extra work to go up. So it's positive because you're getting a workout right there. This vertical line is what is called an undefined slope or a no slope. And once again, a horizontal line is zero slope. I like to think of this as 0 rise or 0 miles per hour. If this was perfectly flat, how fast would you be moving if you were snowboarding? 0 miles per hour, nothing. The way I remember this is, this was you snowboarding and you had an actual good friend and you're like, hey, should I go down this hill? Hopefully they'd tell you no, or else you're going to be dead. It's also called undefined. I feel like I started talking in a deep voice and then I started talking in an accent. Now it's getting confusing. It's called undefined because there's a bunch of rise, but there's 0 run. And you are not allowed to divide something by 0. It's an error. Doesn't work. It will never work. Okay. The next thing we got to talk about is what's called slope-intercept form for graphing lines. That's y equals mx plus b. And I know you've done this all before, probably lots of times, but just as a reminder, m is equal to slope. B is always the y-intercept, which is where it crosses the y-axis. This x and this y actually represent a point that's going to be on that line somewhere. So to graph a line, y equals 3 over 5x minus 4. Step 1, the lonely number. We say it's because it's never had any x's. It's been alone all its life. Is where you put a dot, a point, up or down. So you always look for the lonely number first. And then you say, hey, it's negative 4. So you go down 1, 2, 3, 4. Then from that point, use the slope to find the next point, which is rise over run. This has a rise of 3 and a run of 5. So I'm going to count up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put another dot. Last step is just to draw a line through those points. Now I'm going to cheat. Boom. And you're done. That's graphing a line. So you're always lonely number up and down. And the biggest mistake people will make is they'll put it right or left. Okay, up or down. And then you just use that slope. A couple different things. I don't know why I didn't put these down here for you, but just a couple notes, okay? If the slope is something like 5, convert that into 5 over 1, which means a rise of 5, run of 1. So whenever it's just a whole number, it's always going to be slanted just a little bit because, some people will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they'll be like, well, there's no run because there's no number there. Remember, a vertical line has no slope, so it wouldn't be a number. It'd be basically wouldn't exist, right? Another thing to note, if you have y equals x plus 9, right? There's no number in front of that x, so there's kind of a hidden number there. That hidden number is 1, which you can then convert to 1 over 1. Okay. The other thing, when I say x and y represent a point on that line, let's look at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1, right? 5, negative 1. Oh, don't know what happened there. That's 1. What that means, if you plugged in these points, see, negative 1 equals 3 over 5, and then the x, which was a 5, minus 4. This is a point on that line, this is going to be a correct equation. 3 over 5 is equal to 3. So is it true that negative 1 equals 3 minus 4? Answer that is yes. So check. That point is good.